What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're going to talk about some news today. I know it's been a while. My last update has been a long time in coming. The Chinese Lunar New Year celebrations are all done and dusted, so we can get right back to our news. And to start us off, right after the festivities, India, following on from previous video that I made about discussing the Greta Thunberg and India controversy, India is now going to investigate the protest toolkit shared by Greta Thunberg. So, for those who are unaware, Greta Thunberg had tweeted a document, a Google Doc, that was named a toolkit about how to protest for to join the Indian farmers' protest, which has been a big deal in India over the past couple of months. Tens of thousands of farmers have camped on the outskirts of India's capital, New Delhi, since November, calling for a repeal of laws that they fear will allow large corporations to crush them. So small farmers have been, having a big protest for many months now. Now, without having looked into the laws myself, I can tell you a little bit about the dynamics of the protests. So Greta Thunberg tweeted the document, that was allegedly the toolkit. I saw it looked like a toolkit. It looked like there were sample tweets for her to tweet, and there were references to dates of major events, planned events, and also suggestions about when and how to do your Zoom conference calls, to drum up support, to get your supporters on board, tweet hashtags, get people to tweet at world leaders, including UK ministers, about an Indian domestic issue, which is very strange, very strange. Turnout was organized by a Canadian NGO, and that being found out, it led to huge outcry, which is why this is being followed up on in February, even though this news first broke in November of last year. So, happening around the same time as this, it should come as no surprise now for us to learn that India is now wholly moving entirely in a direction against the social media companies. So check this out by the International Business Times. After ushering in Coup, which is a Indian clone of Twitter, after ushering in Coup to overthrow Twitter, India launches Sandesh to topple WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is, I think it is India's largest messaging app. And now Indians will have more alternatives, more options for them to interact with their friends, family, and including government, because Sandesh is created by the government of India. Let's see. The first version of the app was the Government Instant Messaging System, GIMS, launched in August 2020 by the National Informatics Center to enable inter and intra-organization communication. Now, this has now been, expanded, to a nationwide release, and anybody can use it. The new app is a reflection of the recent government policy to push indigenously developed products in line with its self-reliant India, or, okay, I'm gonna butcher this badly, Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. I hope I got that right. So this is a big deal because India is a huge market for social media companies. In fact, for a lot of companies in the world, India is a big market. So it is a big deal for India to, have legitimate, tough competition for the big social media giants. And with, sentiment being what it is right now, against Twitter, against WhatsApp, especially with WhatsApp's privacy changes recently, which allows WhatsApp, the new terms, updated terms, allows WhatsApp to harvest your communications with businesses to better serve you ads. which is no surprise. That's after all Facebook's main business, serving ads. So, but the change caught many people by surprise, and of course, generated a huge backlash. So this is what is happening. In addition to Sandesh coming to being a proposed an alternative to WhatsApp, Koo is the local Indian alternative to Twitter. The Koo app, is in addition to letting people post in English, also allows users to post in 7 Indian languages. Now, India has, I believe, thousands of local languages. So this is very, very friendly to Indian users to allow them to post, in all the major Indian languages, Tamil, Hindi, Punjabi, and so on. I'm sorry, that's all I can name. Yes, so prominent officials, including Piyush Goyal, the Minister of Industry and Commerce, defected to Koo and urged supporters to follow suit. This led to a 20-fold explosion in daily users, overwhelming servers, and the 10-person engineering team at Bombinit Technologies Private Limited, I guess. So this is terrific. This is wonderful. CEO Aprameya Radhakrishna says we are building for 100% of India and not just the top 1%. So clearly you can't just have it in English. You've got to have it for all, a multitude of languages. So this is terrific news. And that is not all. Last one. Even the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, is jumping in on the action. So the Indian Space Research Organization has entered in an agreement with MapMyIndia to develop mapping and other location-based services in India, which MapMyIndia suggested could become an alternative to widely used Google Maps. So I think this is great news. I am very happy to see that, even though I'm not Indian, I'm very happy to see that there are viable alternatives for Indians to use, which I believe, give confidence to other countries, other societies to build their own versions of whatever the service may be and to use them for their own purposes. Because I think that it is kind of a problem that Twitter actually refused to remove many Twitter accounts, something like 300 Twitter accounts that were flagged by the government of India for inciting violence during the farmers' protest in India, which was the exact issue that Greta Thunberg had caused so much controversy over. So naturally, you can imagine the amount of outrage and anger over the issue, because it is an active, ongoing protest with tens of thousands of people all over New Delhi, occupying the streets, and the government is powerless to make Twitter clamp down on the worst offenders, clearly. Right? Because you wouldn't expect that 300 Twitter accounts represents the whole, totality of Twitter accounts talking about the issue. No, it would clearly be some of, if not the most vitriolic, angry Twitter accounts that would be used to whip up, public anger around the issue. And it is apparently nothing surprising at all, because India has the relevant laws that allow the government to order the suspension of these social media accounts. But Twitter, refusing to back down, said that they would challenge it in court and refused to remove the accounts, even though the laws of India clearly allowed it. Now, which is extremely, hypocritical, of course, because Twitter had no qualms whatsoever about suspending former President Donald Trump when it suited their purposes. But when it comes to India, all of a sudden, oh no, my free speech, so sorry, we can't suspend them. So I don't have any sympathy whatsoever for Twitter on this count. But let's take a quick, just brief look back at the India issue. So Koo is on the Google Play Store. You can take a look at it. It looks a little bit like Twitter. It's very cute, and it's extremely well received. Look, check this out. I think this is 85,000 here is referencing the current version, latest version of the app. And out of that, of those 85,000, the overwhelming majority rated 5 stars. And it's nearly everybody, if you include 4 and 5 stars. It looks like the bar is just overwhelmingly one-sided. So I think that It's clearly something that's got a lot of legs. It's even got a little Indian flag up here. Sandesh, here's the one that was actually built by the Indian government. It looks a lot more, utilitarian and simple. But it looks neat. It looks like, yeah, it has the logos here. National Informatics Center, I believe. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Yeah, so government-led initiative. Also extremely well rated, while, having very few ratings, because I believe this is for the latest version. Check this out. There is some feedback while rating it 5 stars here. Somebody says the UI date picker not open properly. I'm unable to select the date and update my date of birth. App support page content is missing, only showing me support text. At the same time, user rates it 5 stars. So it looks like clearly very, very technically savvy. I know that UI date picker is a feature. It is how you pick the dates in the iOS. When you are developing the program, you need to choose when you want to, select the UI element that the user interacts with. You need to say, when the user taps on this space, bring up the UI date picker. So this is somebody who's clearly a software engineer who says that, okay, this part's not working properly, and I can tell you exactly where and why. However, overall, give it 5 stars. Whether it's for political reasons, because, hey, support India, or, maybe the app actually does work really well. I can't say for sure, but, given how many 5 stars, the ratio of 5 stars, I reckon it works pretty decently, right? So it's really interesting. Sandesh and Cool receiving excellent support. Now, you may think, oh, wow, that's pretty crazy, but surely, that's just India, right? I mean, this isn't happening anywhere else. After all, we haven't heard news of any other countries doing their own local versions of anything to challenge the dominance of Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, and so on. But actually, it is interesting to note, and I have spoken about this in an earlier before, one of the earliest videos of mine, in fact, that Australia was challenging Google and Facebook on a particular issue. That is, they wanted to make Google and Facebook pay local news organizations for using their news, or allowing these local news articles to be shared on Google and Facebook. The Australian Competition Commission, well, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the acronym stands for. It's ACCC, so it's ACCC. Definitely is the Competition Commission. So they had a draft proposal that has now been passed into law, stating that Google and Facebook have to negotiate with Australian news organizations for showing Australian news organizations content on their platforms. So Google has made the deals, while Facebook has chosen not to, and in fact has gone as far as blocking Australian users from posting Australian news on their website. So if you're in Australia, I believe you won't be able to post links to news and see, snippets appear. If anything, it'll probably just be the link. Because the content of the news was exactly what the government was trying to work on, trying to make sure that Australian news organizations were rewarded for their work in reporting the news, that Facebook and Google cannot just report snippets, report the content of the news while not paying any money for it whatsoever. Of course, Google and Facebook would argue that, we're not benefiting from this at all. In fact, we're giving free traffic, free exposure, free recognition to your news organizations. Anything, they should be paying us. So that is their claim, of course. In the end, ultimately, you can see that the Australian government came on the side of the Australian news organizations and insisted that these two companies pay up. Now, Google has agreed. See here, Google is striking deals in Australia, pay for journalism, but Facebook is vowing to restrict news sharing as Australian lawmakers consider forcing digital giants into payment agreements. So the way that the law was formulated was that the Google and Facebook have to negotiate. That is, the government doesn't say you have to pay, but the government said law says that they have to negotiate. If the news organization says, I want to be paid, Google and Facebook are obliged to negotiate. They cannot turn a blind eye. They cannot, turn a deaf ear to the news organizations. They have to come to the table to talk. And if they cannot come to an agreement, which is entirely possible, right? Because why would they agree? Then the last resort is for the matter to go to arbitration. So they would, Google, Facebook, and the news organizations would find a neutral arbitration body that would arbitrate and make a decision about how much needs to be paid. So that being the law, right? Google and Facebook can negotiate in good faith. The news organization negotiate in good faith, and if they come to terms where the news organizations accept Google and Facebook's argument that, oh, we're doing such a valuable service to you, we're giving you such valuable traffic, there's no possible way you could expect us to pay you any money at all for what already huge value we're giving you. If they can make that case and the news organization accept it, then that's fine. That's fine. The government has no say in that. The news organization choose to get paid 1 cent, so long as they're willing to accept, right? So they have to make that. They have to go through that argument and have to sort it out themselves. But the law makes sure that this process takes place. Okay, so first off the line, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, one of the world's largest news organizations, in fact, owner of this very website, Fox 40. I don't know what's Fox 40, but they had this news piece, so I chose to show it. News Corp announced a wide-ranging deal with Google, major Australian media organization. Seven West Media reached a deal earlier. Its rival Nine Entertainment is reportedly close to its own pact. So these big boys are all already in negotiations and close to closing or already closed. But Facebook went all the way around and said it will restrict publishers and people in Australia from sharing or viewing Australian and international news content. Wow. Now that's a tough stance for Facebook to take, to say that it will restrict publishers and people in Australia from sharing or viewing Australian and international news content. Dominant Social Network blamed Australia's proposed law for its decision and said the law fundamentally misunderstands the relationship between our platform and publishers who use it. Which I have already, related to you. It's that Facebook sees that they are giving, huge value to the news organizations, and it is extremely fortunate for the news organizations that Facebook doesn't ask them to pay for that privilege. So you can take it, however way you choose. Like, you can make up your own mind about this. Should Facebook in fact pay news organizations for the news content, or should the news organizations in fact be the one who pay Facebook for the privilege of appearing on Facebook? Sounds like it could go either way, but it's clear that all the power is concentrated in the hands of Facebook. And if Facebook, without the law being in place, if Facebook didn't want to pay, there will be absolutely nothing that the news organization can do about it. Oh, I think it's also important to mention at this time that in my previous video where I talked about this issue, the proposal, the law, was framed exactly to protect regional, smaller newspapers. That is not the big media organizations that are perfectly capable of taking care of themselves, but the smaller regional ones, a local newspaper in New South Wales, a small local newspaper in Melbourne, or Perth. They would be the ones most adversely affected because they don't have a lot of advertisers to start with. They don't have big national advertising deals, so they would have to rely on whatever precious subscribers or precious local advertisers they can get, and they have to justify the value by having users come to their website to get the local news. So they cannot just simply let Google and Facebook grab the content, the pictures, the text from their websites uncompensated and just share it on Facebook. Granted, more people will see the news and it helps the brand recognition, but they don't want brand recognition. They want to get paid. They want users to visit their website, right? So I think that would be one that would be the perspective that the small news organizations would have, and I hope that I have represented it fairly. Okay, let's continue a little bit through this. News Corp said it would receive significant payments from Google in the 3-year agreement, which includes heavyweight news organizations throughout the English-speaking world, such as the Wall Street Journal and New York Post in the US, the Times and the Sun in the UK, and the Australian and Sky News in Australia. So it's a really big media empire, right? News Corp. Let's see. Here we go. Australia's Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said none of the deals would be happening if not for the proposed legislation. The code will create an arbitration panel to set a binding price for news in cases where Google and Facebook fail to reach deals with media companies whose original journalism they link to. So Facebook, in their decision, their current decision is that, well, I don't want to negotiate, I don't want to pay for it, so I will just totally not show any news whatsoever. Let me see. Google did not provide the terms of its deal of its News Corp deal. Yep. Google announced 2 weeks ago that it had begun paying 7 far smaller Australian websites under News Showcase. News Showcase being Google's product for showing news, and through News Showcase, news publishers can get compensation. And yeah, the prices have not been revealed, but it's clear that they had come to an agreement. Facebook has a comparable product called Facebook News, but it's now not available in Australia. Right. So this is in my relating it to the India news is that India is not the only country that has, run into some friction with their social media companies, and it is a sign of the times. I believe India and Australia I commend them for taking a very principled stand on the matter. That is, they see that, their countrymen, their companies are suffering, as a result of decisions made by digital giants, which they have no control over whatsoever, and who may not even choose to obey local laws. At least in the case of India, they chose not to suspend, Twitter accounts that were accused of inciting violence. And in Australia's case, they had decided that the harm being done to their news industry was so great that they had to step in. In fact, Facebook's decision in particular, seems to be causing a lot of harm, and because I say that because you can see here, New York Post, which is incidentally is owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp. So full disclosure, I know that there may be some bias there. So what has happened is that the social media giant placed restrictions on Australian news sites as lawmakers in the country consider forcing Facebook and Google into revenue sharing agreements, which they have already done. Yes. Let's see. Oh yes. On Thursday, other non-news accounts also got caught up in the limitations. The Bureau of Meteorology, a government source for advice about bushfire danger, flooding, and other natural disasters, was briefly erased. This is an alarming and dangerous turn of events, said Human Rights Watch in a statement. Cutting off access to vital information to an entire country in the dead of the night is unconscionable. The Facebook pages of the Queensland and South Australia State Health Department, sources of crucial information about COVID-19 pandemic, were also left blank for several hours Thursday. A Facebook spokesperson told The Guardian that blocking the non-news agencies was done in error. Do you believe that, though? To be honest, I believe it. I can accept it because it was blocked, and then afterwards they had restored access. It's not a calculated move to hurt Australia as a country, because if you really meant that, then you would not lift it at all. You'd say that, oh, sorry, our terms of service just, this is our decision, and this falls under that decision, and so we're going to keep it that way. But no, when they were informed of it, they reversed the decision. So clearly, it's not a premeditated thing, and if it was, it would not be reversed quite so easily. But of course, you can see that people are scrambling. Facebook is scrambling. They had to cut off access to many websites, news websites in particular, in order to comply with the local regulations. I mean, after all, if Facebook decides that I'm not going to show any news, of course they would not be held liable for, they would not have to negotiate with the news organizations, because there is nothing to negotiate. Their content is not showing up. So it's only in the case that Facebook wants to resume showing the news content, that they would have to negotiate. So they're well within their rights to take this action. And of course, the biggest losers would be the Australian users, because now they can't share news content on Facebook. But it is Facebook's decision to make, and they have made it. And we can see the outcome, that they will not be easily pushed around. And I think that this is within expectations, because, and this is very clear once I tell it to you, that if Facebook gives in, well, the next thing, what's going to happen next is that other countries will subsequently start imposing their restrictions on Facebook. They will start enforcing their local laws, passing local laws about exactly these things. And Facebook will be forced to litigate these in court, challenge them, in the countries concerned, and try to find a way forward, which will greatly increase the cost of operations, legal fees, and so on and so forth. Google, on the other hand, it seems that they've decided that they're willing to go along with it. They're willing to suck up the cost and, deal with it and find a way around the problem. As we already know, Google has introduced their product, News Showcase, and News Showcase will be the way in which they show local news and compensate local news publishers for that news. So it is really interesting times that we live in. Tech giants are really starting to face, a lot of pushback. For a long time, they've grown and grown and grown, and rather with minimal regulation and limitations. And as we all know, I think it would surprise absolutely nobody if I said that laws always have to catch up to changes in society. That's just the way it's always been. And perhaps more so when we live in an age where technology changes so quickly. I mean, who would have guessed that, in a mere decade, or in fact, maybe, I can't remember exact number of years, but we went from the ICQ to Friendster and so on to, where we are with Facebook and Instagram and the Snapchat, and all of that, all that change has taken place over just 1-2 decades. So and they're all so different from each other that you could not have written a law governing social media in the age of ICQ or MSN Messenger and have it apply today. It would be totally irrelevant and totally outdated. So it is a testament to the fact that technology changes extremely quickly. And now we're seeing that, okay, regulations is starting to catch up. And local norms, local customs, each of these countries are deciding how they want to deal with it. At the same time, local competition, local alternatives are rising up. And I think it's an easy prediction to make, to say that we'll only see more of this going forward. If you live in a country where there's a vibrant technology startup scene, if you observe that you have many enterprising young companies out there, you're more likely than not to see local alternatives to these tech giants start to pop up, and I think that's the way the world will go. All right, thank you for watching. That's all the update I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, do them both. Share this with somebody who needs to hear about everything that I've just said. And I would really appreciate it. It would help this channel a huge amount, because right now, it's minuscule. So every little bit helps. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.